Welcome everyone to another episode of Let's Talk Special Economic Zones. I'm your host, Ainsley Brown. I'm the Senior Director for Regulations, Policy Monitoring and Enforcement at Jamaica's Special Economic Zone Authority. In today's episode, we're going to cover economic regulation, and we're going to cover what exactly is economic regulation and what connection do they have, or does it have, I should say, with special economic zones. So economic regulation basically is refers to the rules that limit who can enter a business. That's entry controls and what prices they may charge, price controls. Now, economic regulation is important to special economic zones for several reasons. Special economic zones, of course, are special environments. So there are entry controls from who can actually physically enter to who actually can come and invest. So economic regulation is important for the regulator and also for the investor. And it is about providing business confidence and by creating a stable and predictable environment for investments. That's really the aim of economic regulation. Now, um, economic regulation as well, because special economic zones have a development agenda or a development objective. Special economic regulations or economic regulations, I should say, would naturally flow or be associated with economic zones, no matter what they're called, free trade zones, free zones, enterprise zones, whatever it is, whatever the major objectives of the government who implemented them, be it strictly moving up the value chain or plugging into global value chains or moving up or creating employment at a certain level or all of the above and more. Whatever those objectives are, economic regulation is at the heart of what the zone authority does, whether that zone authority um, is involved in the leasing of space or land itself, or is acting strictly as a regulator or somewhat of a hybrid like what Jamaica has. Now, economic regulation is basically to use a definition to further enhance the definition and going from or using Australia's Essential Services Commission. They say that economic regulation is where the disciplines of competition are weak or absent. An economic regulator acts as the visible hand seeking to guide service providers towards outcomes that would have occurred had the market been subject to competitive disciplines. So, more and more economic regulation is less about correcting for market failures and more about enabling markets and providing that stable environment for business to thrive and for investments to grow, and as a result, employment to expand as well, which all of which are generally goals of special economic zones programs. So economic regulation, there is always a component of special economic zones that has a development agency component to it. So in Jamaica, for example, we have the overall the regulation of the zone, but um, we also have a promotional aspect by law and a economic development aspect. Now, regulation in general, not just economic regulation, but regulation in general, and specifically economic regulation, is not about impediments. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about putting down um, or clearing the path for growth to happen by using the law as an instrument to do so. So it's also about incentivizing certain behaviors that you want to see and creating that ecosystem. So it's about building and then regulating the ecosystem that you want to see, the economy that you want to see, the industries that you want to see come to or be attracted to your zone. So, an example of, say, economic regulation within a SEZ context would be, for example, qualification, eligibility criteria. Who is eligible to enter to be a developer, or be who the developer, of course, being the one that builds out a zone. Who is eligible to be an occupant, the person that occupies the zone that's built by the developer. Another example of it is minimum size, minimum investment. So the developer, there are rules and regulations around what's the minimum size or class of zone that the developer can build or should build based on what they applied for. Another aspect of economic regulation is um, when an application is being processed, what have you been approved to do, particularly in relation to occupants? What industries um, have you been authorized to do? You applied to be a chemicals manufacturer, and now you want to move into food. Well, you were approved to do chemicals, so we need to have a discussion before, and maybe we won't approve you to become food, because you have to prove that those two things won't mix based on safety guidelines. So economic regulation is very important, not just for the administrators of zones, but also for the investors, for the developers and the occupants, because it creates that commercial certainty, and creates that environment, and you know what the environment that is being created, and it's going to be later monitored and regulated. So that's the end of this episode. If you liked what I had to say today, please like, share, or leave a comment down below. If you want to see something for a future episode, please let me know, and I'll try my best to accommodate you. So bye for now.